Welcome back to episode 29, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. I am Tracy Gantlin-Monroy, and this is Beyond the Spot. There is a moment in healing that doesn't get enough tenderness. That space where you've stepped out of an old identity, an old role, even when we think about old wound, as well as old agreements, whether they were spoken or not. But you haven't yet stepped into the fullness of who you're becoming. That space has a name. We call it the liminal space, the sacred in between. Liminal doesn't mean lost. Liminal means in transition. It means your nervous system has stopped running the old survival script, but it hasn't yet learned the language of your emerging self. You are not confused, beloved. You are actually recalibrating. You are not drifting. You are becoming. It is a process. This episode is for that space in between, as we'll call it. And as we begin to settle ourselves into this week's episode, I do want to extend a reflective invitation. Where am I feeling in between in my body today? Ask yourself that and then simply notice. Welcome back. It is my pleasure to be with you. Beyond the Spot, Decolonizing Healing One Brain at a Time, is a podcast that weaves, my first love, of course, Brainspotting, and somatic informed modalities with embodied healing, cultural consciousness, and real talk about trauma, resilience, and recovery. Hosted by Tracy Gantlin-Monroy, a licensed professional counselor, spiritual healer, and the first Black female brain spotting trainer in the world. Each episode dares to dismantle mental health myths, uplift lived experiences, and restore collective wisdom. One conversation at a time. Beyond the Spot podcast is for educational purposes and is not therapy. Please reach out to licensed medical and mental health professionals. Thank you. Let's start right here. What is liminal space? There is a space the nervous system enters when you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. It's tender, disorienting, and for many, quite holy. Luminal space is the threshold, the doorway between your former survival and your future self. In somatic language, liminality is dorsal quiet, ventral flickering, sympathetic residue, the gentle sway between collapse and awakening, the body resting between fight and flight, trying to remember ease. In a decolonized frame, liminality is where the old role dissolves. Inherited cultural scripts lose their grip. Survival identity softens. Selfhood begins to gather itself again. And even if I were to put a spiritual lens to it, in spiritual lingua or language, liminality is the wilderness per se, the hush before revelation, the terrain where God speaks identity once performance fails away. Yeah, because we know from a spiritual sense of self, there is a falling away. And so, with that as an operational sense of location, I want to invite you to reflectively be with or notice what role or identity have you stepped out of, even if your body hasn't fully caught up. And I just want to invite you to reflect and sit with that a little bit. I want to move towards this idea when the old self begins to fall away, because I think that's important, right? When you stop performing the identity that kept you safe, whether it was the fixer, the strong one, the quiet one, even, or how about the responsible one, or even the one who never causes waves or a rift, your body doesn't celebrate first. It pauses, it listens, it waits to learn who you are now, that you're no longer sacrificing yourself for a belonging. This pause can actually feel like confusion or perhaps even exhaustion, loneliness, emotional fog. Like nothing feels familiar in that space. But this is not collapse necessarily. This is deprogramming. This is your nervous system releasing the cost of the old role and preparing to inhabit a new embodiment. Yeah, because it's all about resonance and embodiment. And so, with that, I do want to extend the invitation. What part of you is grieving who you used to be? Even if that self was built for survival. Because I speak quite a lot about survival and adaptation. When there is no threat, adapt. Yeah. So I want to invite us to look at this idea of the disorientation of becoming, because becoming rarely arrives with clarity. It often arrives with quiet, the silence that shows up when the noise of the old self fades. Because we have different senses of ourselves, y'all, and even different parts of ourselves. I'm talking about that silence can feel like, right? Could feel like so many different things. How about I don't know who I am right now? What about when that silence feels like I don't know what I feel? Or even I don't know what comes next. And sometimes that silence can feel like I don't recognize myself. That is not a problem. That is the process. Transformation requires disorientation because orientation was built around your former self. The nervous system has to slow down. It requires an opportunity to release hypervigilance and to stop bracing. And the nervous system requires an opportunity to learn the rhythm of peace and begin trusting the ground again. I promise you, you are not falling apart. You are reorganizing. What feels unfamiliar to you? They and them. Not because it's wrong, but because it's new. Notice that. And I want to come from, not want to come from, but I'm coming from a somatic and brain spotting frame, as you know. And I do want to give an offering of some things that you may want to engage for that in between. Okay. This is where we actually invite and honor the body's wisdom, right? For brain spotting, for many of you familiar with that, perhaps there's a liminality spot. This is where we locate where the in between, quote unquote, sits, whether it be your throat, your solar plexus, your chest, your jaw, your shoulders. Anchor your gaze and let the body reveal whatever that is, whatever shows up, whether it be the grief, the fear, the expansion, the trembling, the release. And here's a phrase that may be helpful that we get to say to ourselves and with ourselves. I am allowed to be in transition. Yeah. I also want to invite you to the idea of the emerging self spot. Find where anticipation, possibility, or even slight warmth lives in the body. Even if it's a flicker, notice that and anchor the gaze and breathe into that. Yeah. And here is an anchoring phrase for the emerging self spot. My next self is already forming. And I don't know if you're noticing, but even as these spots have come to me, they're also quite manifesting. What a time of the year to be manifesting. Love it. Let's look at even the idea of somatic grounding for the unknown. I just want to invite you to place one hand on your body where you feel the most activation. Just a gentle hold, a quiet presence, affirming your sense of felt sense. And here's an anchoring phrase. I don't need answers to honor this moment. Because even with this grounding for the unknown, it's an invitation to be present with your sense of self, especially as we're unwinding and no longer yielding to these programmed roles, oftentimes spoken and unspoken, especially when it comes to our family systems, especially when it comes to those that we love and that we've been in deep relationships with. And many of you may require a repetition of safety, which has to do with slow orienting. So I just want to invite you to name 3 things in the room that makes your system feel present. Yeah, and just gently reflect and say to yourself, you can even say it out loud, I am here and I am becoming. And the reflective invitation here is, what does your body know about who you're becoming, even if your mind doesn't? Yeah. And just ask yourself, what does my body know about who I'm becoming, even if my mind doesn't? Yeah. Because we know that there's not ever only one part of the brain in action, but where I'm coming from with the invitations I'm giving is quite subcortical. It's quite feeling brain stuff. We can't think ourselves out of a corner, you all. Yeah, and we've been programmed that 2 plus 2 equals 4 in the West. And it's not about being able to function from a linear perspective, but to be able to drop down subcortically. Yeah, into that midbrain area, into that, as we call it in brain spotting, the subcortical feeling brain. Yeah. I want to share some thoughts about the liberatory and the spiritual frame of the in between. The in between is a space that we all occupy, and we're coming from this idea of liminality for sure. And liberatory work, liminal space is where inherited wounds loosen, ancestral wisdom rises, and clarity arrives and comes in whispers. The old story loses its authority, and the new story is written in the nervous system before the mind understands it. Even from a spiritual formation perspective, the wilderness is never punishment. It is absolutely preparation. It is revelation in slow motion. For me, it is God meeting me in the raw places where old identities have fallen away. Yeah. You are not abandoned. You are invited. And ask yourself, who am I becoming when I stop negotiating with the past? I feel like I'm in church right now, so why not give the benediction for the in between? You are not who you were. You are not yet who you're becoming. You are in the sacred middle where the nervous system learns to trust what the soul already knows. Honor the in between, honor the quiet, honor the becoming that does not rush. This space is not a delay, it's a doorway. I'm feeling this and I'm sitting with it even for myself as I'm sharing with each and every one of you. Thank you for being with me this week. I just wanted to give an invitation towards what could feel like relief for so many. This is Beyond the Spot. I am Tracy Gantlin-Monroy. Until next time. May you rest in the truth that you are becoming, that your becoming is already underway. I trust you. I trust you to heal yourself. And I trust you to engage whatever process that is in your own luminal space that you will become. Yeah, the newness and what that looks like. Thank you. Happy holidays. If today's episode resonated with your nervous system or your spirit, share it with someone who's still unlearning and reach out to me. My website is gracecommunitycounseling.com. You can reach me on Instagram at Monroy LPC. That is MONROY LPC. Also, I have offerings from retreats to Brainspotting trainings to workshops, you name it. And I am also a speaker. So if you ever need a speaker with my skill set, look me up. Give me a call. Let's see what can happen. And absolutely for you clinicians and adjacent body healers, feel free to reach out and attend a Brainspotting training. We have trainings all the time. Thank you.